Okay. Please wait, class. My laptop is very sobrang bagal. I think I have unstable internet connection. Still loading. Please wait, class. Okay, can you now see my slide? Class, can you now see my current slide?
Yes.
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 Okay, so we are now on the second to the last chapter. So we still have the last chapter for the midterms, that would be infectious diseases of the integumentary and the sense organs. Okay, and then for the finals, it will be part were part of the parasitology and of the different parasite that may cause diseases from different systems. Okay, so we will start it actually with the integumentary down to the sense organs and the other systems. Okay, so that would be our last chapter for the midterm. So for the human defenses against infections, we will be having this subcategories topics that we need to finish until Thursday. Okay, so we have the pathogenesis of infectious diseases. Of course, this is the development of the disease. Okay, and then the non-specific cause defense mechanism. So we will be discussing here what are the non-specific cause defenses that usually occur within us, okay, before the diseases may occur. Okay, and then the specific cause defense mechanism, which also includes our innate immunity, and of course the vaccines. Okay, this is also included in the discussion, the different types of vaccines. Okay, for the human defenses against infection. Okay, so first, before we start or to go deeper on the different topics of the human defenses, we need to actually go over again different terms that actually we might actually discuss last time, and those terms that are new to us. Okay, so from the word pathology, in the word path, okay, usually means those diseases, okay, that caused by pathogens. Okay, and then the pathogen, this is the disease causing microbes. So when we are talking here about pathogen, it may be can be a microorganism, that can be a virus, a bacteria, a parasite, protozoans. Okay, so these are disease-causing microbes. Okay, and then the term pathology is the study of the structural and functional manifestation of the disease. So we discussed this last time, that when we study pathology, okay, we usually analyze here, okay, or study the different cause of the diseases in the bodily fluids or the organs or tissues. Okay, and then the pathologist is the someone specializing the study of pathology. So of course, these are the physicians or the doctors who specializing pathology. Okay, and then when we talk about pathogenicity, this is the ability of the pathogen to cause diseases. Okay, and then pathogenesis is the step or mechanisms involved in the development of the disease. Okay, this is now the where the disease develops. Okay, so what are those ways or manners where this diseases develops? Okay, so um, why infection does not always occur? We have so many reasons why usually infection does not always occur, even if we know that we are exposed to an environment where there will be where there will be instances that there will be um, cases of infectious diseases like this COVID-19 caused by SARS-CoV-2 or other diseases like dengue. Why infection does not always occur? These are the following reasons or causes. Okay, and then first will be anatomic and receptor sites will be one of the reason. So when you say anatomic and receptor sites, okay, anatomic sites is where infection does not always occur because, like for example, if that pathogen or microorganism are anaerobic, okay, it will not actually land, or it may land to a certain anatomic site that they cannot be able to survive. Example will be the skin. Okay, so anaerobe may land to a certain area where they cannot be able to survive and multiply. Okay, and some other pathogens or microorganism may be able to invade or resides to, like for example, in the stomach, where they will be able not to be able to survive or multiply there because of the acidity of the stomach. Okay, so it has something to do with the anatomic site. Okay, and then when it comes to the receptor sites, it needs to bind to a certain receptor sites where they will be able to multiply and survive. But if they will not be able to bind, okay, to a certain receptor site, they will not be able to cause any infection. So this is one reason why infection does not always occur, the anatomic site and receptor sites. Okay? Another reason is that antibacterial factors at the site where pathogens land. Okay? So there will be actually factors or antibacterial factors in the sites where the pathogens will be able to kill or being destroyed. Okay, so we have the term, what do you call this? The bacteriocins. Bacteriocins is actually a proteinaceous toxin produced by the non-pathogenic microorganism usually colonize our digestive tract. Okay, that actually kills or destroys certain microorganism who usually or comes to enter or invades our system. So we call it the bacteriocins. Okay. Next, we have the microbial antagonism by indigenous microflora. So this is actually a competition of nutrients and supplies. So there will be, they compete, okay, the pathogens at the same time, our indigenous microflora or our indigenous microbiota compete with the nutrients available and of course the space. So that's the reason why infection does not always occur. Okay, and then aside from this, okay, our indigenous microflora usually produce toxin that which is very what do you call this, that can kill or destroy certain invaders or pathogens. Okay, and Okay. And then the bacteriocins, okay, aside from the ones that has an antibacterial factors, okay, like the one that I've mentioned earlier, it is actually produced by indigenous microflora or our normal microbiota. So that's why they are non-pathogenic microorganism that usually resides in our system that may not affect our health, okay, but in one way or another can also help us to kill or destroy certain invaders or microorganism. Okay. Another reason why infection does not always occur is our individual's nutritional status or our overall health. So we are less likely to have the infection if we have a very healthy or we have the healthy body or we have good um, overall overall health. Okay, so if we have, of course, this good nutritional status or we have a good overall health, meaning to say we have a very strong immune system. We can fight against infection. Okay, we prevent our system to have that infection. But of course, if an individual are malnourished, they don't have those nutrients, environments that the body needed to fight against those infection, then they will eventually have those diseases or infection. So, yun nga sinasabi nila usually in all the commercials or in advertisement that prevention is better than uh, 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 the cure. Okay, preventing our system to have the infection by having a very have a very um, good nutritional health or overall health is one way or one way to prevent us from having the infection or having the disease. Okay. Next, a person may have that develop the immunity against particular microorganisms. So that's why infection does not always also occur. Okay, so in developing immunity, this is having the infection before you already have the disease before or the infection. So you might have developed immunity against that particular microorganism. Aside from this is vaccination. Okay, the one that we having that we have or we took already in this time of pandemic. Okay, we are vaccinated against the COVID-19 disease caused by the SARS-CoV-2. The vaccination is actually having the weakened pathogen that acts for our immune system to act against the pathogen if the actual infection occurs. Okay, that's the reason why we are encouraged and we are advised to have to be vaccinated. Okay, so I don't know if this information, since they already have it in the news, okay, that we have the what do you call this, the national vaccination, that we have the 3-day national vaccination, okay, days. That would be November 29, 30, and December 1. And they are proposing to have that a free day so that everybody, those who are not yet been vaccinated, will be able uh, um, to be vaccinated in those 3 days that the government they allotted that for those individuals that are not yet been vaccinated with the COVID-19 vaccine. Okay, so I don't know. We are to to be updated until before November 29, if they will announce that, declare that as a parang for us as academic break, okay, for those our members of the family or our loved ones or ourselves to be vaccinated on that particular day. I don't know if they will push through with that. So that's why they are telling that we will be having a long weekend on that particular days. So we will just be updated if they will be announcing to have that parang vaccination break. Okay, we will wait that for their declaration to for that 3-day vaccination for national vaccination days in the Philippines. Okay, so vaccination is very important. Okay, without those vaccines since birth, the BCG, I don't know if we can survive with this time of pandemic, with this environment that we have, because the COVID-19 is actually a respiratory disease, and it can be transmitted, can be transferred through airborne, okay, or droplets. So we need this actually these vaccines. Okay? Not only these vaccines, because we in this time of pandemic, we actually are emphasizing now, or just parang andun na yung ano natin sa COVID lang eh. We are not actually not anymore we are not updated anymore with the other diseases, but still we are the government are continuing to have the other vaccines aside from the COVID-19 vaccines. We are still having those vaccines that we actually have started before. Tuloy-tuloy pa rin yun. It does not stop actually. Okay? So vaccines and the vaccination process itself is very important in this time of pandemic. Okay? Another is that the phagocytic WBC actually engulf and destroy pathogen even before, even before the infection. We actually have the innate in our system, part of our blood, the WBC, that acts as to engulf and destroy pathogens. So they undergo the process of phagocytosis. Okay, they usually engulf and destroy pathogens. Okay, so this is the work or function of our WBC. So that's why if you happens to observe in your what do you call this, in your blood test, if you have in the normal range, if you have increased, okay, WBC in your blood, it only means one thing: you have an infection. Okay, so that's why if you have something that you felt something wrong in your system, you felt you you felt restless, or you are experiencing fatigue, fever, or malaise, there's something wrong. So that's why in the hospital, or the doctor usually advised to have a blood test or urine test for the doctor to know what exactly is your disease, to diagnose exactly or to confirm exactly what is that cause your infection. Okay, so that's one reason. Phagocytic WBC usually engulf and destroy pathogens. Okay, so there are stages in the course of the disease. So even if we don't feel that we are infected with something, but the moment an pathogen or invader or a microorganism usually enters our system, it undergo 4 stages in the course of the infection of the disease. Okay, we have actually the first period. We have actually 4. incubation period, prodromal period, the period of illness or the illness period, and the last will be convalescent period. Okay. First will be the incubation period. So actually the incubation period is the period where the initial contact occurs until the beginning of the first symptom. Okay. So that is the incubation period. So there is a reason why. So it depends. Okay. The incubation period depends upon the following. Like, for example, the characteristic of the pathogen. When you say characteristic of the pathogen, there's something, it actually means, okay, the number of the pathogen that enters your system or your body. So the virulence, how toxic or how pathogenic is the microorganism that invades your system. Okay, and of course, another reason, or it depends upon the overall status of the health of the individual. So if the individual is immunocompromised, okay, or it has a weak immune system, so basically the individual can be infected easily, or it can gain or have the infection faster. Okay, so that's the incubation period. The second period or the stage is the prodromal period. So this is the period where the earliest symptoms are notable, but you are actually out of sorts. You are coming down with something, you don't know what it is. Like you have those earliest symptoms, like what the one that I mentioned earlier. You have the malaise, you have you experience fatigue, fever, okay, but you don't know what it is. Parang it's not the normal that you felt, na parang uh, parang may sakit yata ako. Parang you don't know, you cannot actually point it out what it is. Okay? So that is prodromal period. This is now the beginning of parang hindi ka na mapalagay, na parang medyo matamlay ka na. So that is the prodromal period. Third stage or period is the period of illness. So this is other term of period of invasion. So this is the period of most communicability, meaning to say, this is the period where the infection or the illness can be easily be transmitted. So you can now actually detect, you can now actually felt the specific signs and symptoms of the disease. Okay. So this is the period of illness. You know that there's something wrong actually now, that you may actually confirm it to yourself that you already been infected with a microorganism or a pathogen. Okay, so it is where the period where you can easily transmit the pathogen from one person to another. Okay, and this would be the third. Okay, another for the period of illness is where the infectious agent multiplies at its highest level. So it exhibits its greatest toxicity and becomes well established in its target tissue. Okay, so meaning to say, if you in the COVID-19 disease, okay, you know already what the signs and symptoms and what specific system already that appears, that symptoms or those signs. So that would be your respiratory tract, which usually targets. Okay? So doon ka nahihirapang huminga. Okay? You already felt that you are you have the cough, you have the phlegm already. Okay? And you have the running nose or whatever. Those are symptoms of the respiratory tract infection. Okay? So that is the period of illness. Okay? The last or the fourth period or the stage will be convalescent period. So this period okay, is actually a recovery period. If you will be able, of course, when you and di ba, if we actually starting to feel uncomfortable with our feeling, with our status, we actually have the first medication, right? We have the paracetamol, and you in the period of illness, this is the time where we go to our doctors already, right? And the doctors will be able to give us medications, antibiotic. And by that time, if you already have those antibiotics, you will uh, you will be able to feel, and you'll be able to monitor those symptoms are less likely to disappear. And in this last period or stage, which is the recovery period, you are actually overcoming the symptoms already, and you are progressing, and already felt like you are normal. You are not actually experiencing those fever, fatigue, or malaise already. But of course, um in this period, the patient's strength and health gradually return. But if not, okay, if your sickness or infection is um, uh, in the malignant stage already, you will not be able to overcome it. You will eventually die. So that's the reason why, if you will not be able to happens to have those medications beforehand, okay, kumaga lumala pa, okay, hindi ka pa nagpa-doktor, you will be able not to be able to fight this infection or this disease, and you will eventually die of that particular disease or infection. Okay? Pag hindi naagapan. Okay? So this is the convalescent period. So these are the stages in the course of the disease. Oh, we have the first will be the incubation period, second will be prodromal period or the stage, and the third will be the period of illness or the stage of the illness, and then the last will be the recovery period or the convalescent period. Okay? So there are signs and symptoms that we need to actually differentiate and compare its difference. Okay, so when you say sign, this is actually an objective of evidence of the disease. Okay, objective evidence of the disease. Okay, so this is actually, I think this is the one that usually um, seized by or observed by the physician. And then we have the symptoms, which is the subjective evidence of the disease, okay, which the patient itself is only the one who can feel it. Okay, so when you say signs, these are the vital signs or our vital status, okay, and the laboratory results. So when say vital signs, this is of course our heart rate, okay? So this our blood pressure. So upon admission, they usually get our vital signs already. And this is the objective evidence of the disease. It can be monitored by the healthcare professionals, the nurses, the physicians. So it can be seen and be observed by the doctors or the healthcare professionals, the nurses. Okay, and of course the laboratory result can also be read by the doctors, and of course can be seen by the healthcare professionals like the nurses, and of course the medical technologies. So these are the examples of the signs. Okay. How about for the symptoms, where the objective evidence of the diseases can be seen? We have of course, the pain. Okay. These symptoms, like what I mentioned a while ago, it can only be observed and can only be felt by the patient, you yourself. But it, so it cannot be felt by other person because it's your body. You can only felt the pain, right? Yung the inflammation. If you had something, a part of your body that's painful, you can actually say it to the doctor because the doctor will ask you, what's your feeling, what's part of your body that's painful, and that's one of the ways or the one ways that can the doctor can confirm or diagnose also or your infection or confirm your disease. Okay, that's pain. Tinnitus or tinnitus is the one that you parang have you felt this tinnitus? You can feel ringing of your ear that's not normal. Yung parang may naririnig ka na parang malakas ang ulan. Okay, pero wala namang ulan, parang there's a tingling in your ear. That's tinnitus or tinnitus. Okay? So these are symptoms. Okay? Another example of a symptom is a blurred vision. Okay? If you cannot clearly see already objects or your family member or there a blurred vision already, so these are another example of symptoms that can be felt by the patient. Another is itching or rashes. Okay? So these are examples of symptoms. Itching or rashes or chills. Okay? This is different when you are, if you felt, di ba? If you have high fever, it usually follows that you chills. Okay? Parang nilalamig ka, sobrang init na nga ng katawan mo. So these are examples of symptoms that can only be felt by the patient or the individual suffering from the disease or the infection, and can only be say or told or to the physicians or the doctors. Sasabihin mo so that they will be able to know what's actually or confirm actually what your infection or the disease. So these are the examples of the symptoms. Okay? So for the asymptomatic or subclinical, okay, we have a disease a patient is unaware of because he or she is not experiencing symptoms. Okay? So we have actually the term asymptomatic or subclinical, meaning to say you only have the pathogen but you cannot feel the symptoms. Okay? But you already have the pathogen. You know what exactly is parang fearful of having the asymptomatic or asymptomatic sign or asymptomatic disease, okay, is that you don't know, you are unaware that you already have the pathogen, and because of it you can unknowingly transfer it to another person. Okay? If you are asymptomatic, okay? Because you are not experiencing any symptoms, you can unknowingly and unaware to transmit the disease or infection. Okay? So that is asymptomatic or subclinical. Example of these diseases or infection is we have the gonorrhea. So usually, it can actually infect male or female, but usually this is very prominent to male having a vaginal or urethral discharge in the male, or they can experience painful urination. Okay? The trichomoniasis usually common in female. Okay? They usually experience vaginosis. Okay? vaginosis or inflammation of the vagina. Okay? That is a asymptomatic example of asymptomatic. Okay? So the term syndrome, okay, is a certain complex or signs and symptoms. This is a combination of the signs and symptoms that we felt if we already have the disease. Okay, example of a syndrome. Okay, that we felt. This is the signs and the combination of the signs and symptoms. We have the acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. Okay, and or the severe acute respiratory syndrome. So you know already the acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, if you have the HIV, the severe acute respiratory syndrome, or the SARS, or the same symptoms with the COVID-19, okay, or the Asperger's syndrome. You know, Asperger's syndromes this is actually a neurodevelopmental disease or disorder where you have it is characterized for the inability to interact socially. Parang sinasabi nilang parang it's an abnormal disorder. Okay? Yung parang if an individual have this, they have the inability to socialize. They have the inability to express their feeling, or they have the inability to talk. Umaga, or they have the difficulty to act or with their motors, or it usually affects motor abilities. Okay? So that's Asperger's syndrome. For the classification of infection, this is according to the site of affected. So we have two classification. We have classification of infection. This is according to the site affected. First, we have the localized infection. So when you say localized infection, it is something to do with the infection that it is actually in only, we can categorize, or it's only in one area or locality. Okay? Like for example, pimples, okay? Or this SARS, this COVID-19, which is actually affecting our respiratory tract. Okay, it is localized. It can be seen. It can only targets to one area or one area or location. Okay, so that's localized. So when you say systemic infection, it has something to do of the ones that infecting our system already, overall system or overall health. So if your blood is infected, if your blood is infected, that is an example of systemic infection. Like for example, is sepsis or miliary TB. The miliary TB or miliary tuberculosis, it's a type of tuberculosis that actually affects the different areas of our system or different system already. Not only the respiratory, but it can have TB on your gastrointestinal. Okay, so that is miliary. That is systemic infection. Or we have the metastatic or metastatic cancer. Okay, it already spreads throughout your system. So that is systemic infection. So this is the classification of infection according to the site affected. Okay, so please tell me if you already have extended the time. We need to finish this until 7:30 only. Okay. Another classification of infection, this is according to onset and the duration of the infection. Okay, so we have the acute. infection. So when we say acute infection, we have a rapid onset and rapid recovery. Okay, that is acute. That is, we have a rapid onset of the infection, and we also have a rapid recovery. So mabilis lang na magkaroon, mabilis din lang mawala. Okay, so we have the measles and the mumps. Okay, you know measles, if you have that very high fever in one day or the overnight, and if the rashes already comes out from the head up to the toe, okay, eventually it will, you will actually recover it easily. So that is rapid onset and rapid recovery. Same is true with the mumps. Okay. Subacute, like for example, bacterial endocarditis. This is actually inflammation of the inner lining of our heart. Okay. This is in between acute and chronic infection. So when you say subacute, or this is in between acute and chronic chronic infection, it is actually have you can it develops faster, the chronic infection, or it develops slowly, the chronic infection, okay, and develops faster the acute. So it's in between. You have the subacute infection, like the bacterial endocarditis. So usually it has a slow onset, okay, and a rapid recovery, parang ganon, or vice versa. For chronic disease or chronic infection, we have the Koch disease. Like for example, the respiratory, if you are been infected with a respiratory pathogen, the TB, okay, it has a slow onset and slow recovery. Matagal siyang gumaling. Okay, we have the Koch diseases. So if you still remember the Koch diseases, these are examples of the respiratory tract diseases. Okay? The Hansen's disease is another term for the disease leprosy. Okay? You know leprosy? This is actually can be transmitted from one person to another through direct contact, skin to skin. Okay? If you have the leprosy, you know leprosy, infection of the nose, or yung parang nagbukol-bukol ang mukha, kahit saang parte. Okay? So that's why if you have leprosy before, in times of Christ before, you are being separated from the others because of the tendency that you can transmit the disease from one person to another. That's Hansen's disease. It has a slow onset and also slow recovery. Okay, so these are the classification of infection according to onset and duration. Okay. Next would be the classification of infection according to sequence of infection. So when you say sequence of infection, it can be interrelated to others. Okay? So first is the primary infection. This is the infection that you have it. Okay? And if you are admitted, that is your primary infection. Okay? Like for example, if you have the respiratory tract infection, that is your primary infection. Okay? Secondary infection can be caused to the additional primary infection. Like for example, if you have a minor respiratory tract infection like colds or flu, you can get it from the primary infection, and you will be able to have the secondary infection, which can lead to pneumonia or to a major infection to your respiratory tract. That is secondary infection. Okay? Latent infection it's an infection that you already have it already. Latent infection. Like for example, chickenpox. You already overcome chickenpox. But you already have no symptoms like fever already, or the 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 liquid, what do you call this, yung nagtutubig na mga blisters or whatever when you experience the chicken pox. But if you have the chicken pox, you already have, you don't have anymore the experience, the symptoms, or you already recovered already from the disease, but the pathogen is still there. Okay, but the moment your immune system weakens, it will develop to shingles. What is shingles? This is actually the infection of our nerve tissues. Okay, so from the chicken pox, and when you already overcome it, the pathogen is still there, but the moment your immune system weakens, it will develop to shingles. That is the infection of our nerve tissues. Okay? So these are the classification. This is the classification of infection according to the sequence of infection. Okay? Now comes the host defense mechanism. For the host defense mechanism, from the word defense. Okay? So it has something to do with the ways or manners how our innate defenses, our host defenses, can protect our system from invaders or microorganism or pathogens. So we have three lines of defenses. Okay, we have three lines of elaborate and highly complex defense. So if you will be able to notice here, okay, in the image, okay, it's like combating. It's like our system is like a soldier, like likely to combat those invaders, okay, pertaining to the three line of defenses. So what are these three line of defenses? For the first line of defense, we have the first and second line of defenses is actually our non-specific line of defense. Meaning to say, it can defeat, it can destroy pathogenic and non-pathogenic invaders. Okay? Because it is non-specific. It can kill or destroys everything that invades our system. The third line of disease is of defense, I should say, is our immune system. So our third line of defense, which is our immune system, is specific. It can only kill or destroy specific antigens that may encounter or may recognize, that our system recognize. Okay, so these are the three line of defenses. We have for our first line of defense will be our intact, or our skin that's intact, and our mucous membrane that is intact. Okay, our second line of defense will be the ones that we usually experience, the inflammation, the phagocytosis, and the others. So it will be discussed in the succeeding slides. Okay. Did the slide already? Parang hindi siya nag-ano. Okay, so our host defense mechanism has the non-specific host defense, which is our first line of defense and the second line of defense. Okay, our specific host defense will be our third line of defense. So you will be the objective of this part of this topic will be, you will be identifying which in our system will be our first line and our second line of defenses, which is our third line of defense. Okay, so our non-specific, okay, host defense, or our first and second line of defenses, this is actually the natural. or built-in body components that destroy all types of foreign substances. Okay? So it's built-in defense. It's natural. Okay? So the first line of defense, we usually our surface protection composed of anatomical and physiological barrier. So when you say anatomical, that would be our skin, and physiological barrier, which is our mucous membranes. Okay. And our second line of the defense will be our non-specific cellular and chemical responses. Like, for example, our phagocytes, specifically our WBC, and when we experience fever and inflammation. Actually, when we experience fever and inflammation, this is our defense mechanism. It helps us actually in a way. So we will discuss that later. How is our fever, how when we experience inflammation, helps us to eventually kill or helps us in a way to destroy invaders. Okay? So these are our first and second line of defense. Okay? Our specific host defense, which is our third line, okay, of defense, is our specific host defenses that must be developed uniquely for each microbe through the action of specialized WBC. So this is not innate. We can get it from our vaccines, okay? Or we can get it from our prior infection. So that is our third line of defense. Okay. So first we discuss our first line of defenses. Okay. So our first line of defense actually impede entry not only of microbes but any foreign object, whether living or not. So our first line of defense is when you say it impede entry, whether it is living or not. Like, for example, if there are something that usually gain or infects your eyes, which is non-living, what usually in the succeeding slides, what is the action? What is our defense against those living and non-living invaders? Okay, so first is our skin. So we know that our skin is composed of epithelial cells that have become compacted, cemented together, and impregnated with an insoluble protein or the keratin. So these are the non-living. Okay, these are the layers of the epidermis with the keratin is actually a non-living dead skin that usually have a acidic pH that eventually will not be able, all the pathogens or the microorganism cannot be able to survive. Okay, especially those anaerobic ones. So in our skin, we have the upper or the top layer, or the superficial, I should say, which is the epidermis. So before an invader or a microorganism goes through or pass through inside our system, it needs to break. Okay, it needs to pass through first our first line of defense, which is our skin. Okay. So any disruption in the integrity of the skin may provide a portal of entry. So that's why the skin can be a portal of entry to invaders. Like if you have abrasions or cuts, if you have wounds already, you already destroyed, or any destruction in the integrity of the skin may provide invaders or may gain entry of the microorganism or pathogens or any non-living. Okay. So another for the skin will be the slashing off of dead skin cells, also remove potential pathogens. So that's why when you take a bath, you are not only to what of course, when you take a bath, part of the ones or those potential pathogens can be easily removed. Flashing of the water and of course applying those soap, but you need also to scrub it. Okay? When you scrub, it's not yung sobrang pag-scrub naman. Make sure that you can actually scrub it, those potential area that may be able to gain access by the pathogens. So, sloughing off of dead skin, yung mga namamalat ka, diba? It's a good sign that you already removing potential pathogens. Okay? So, that's again part of our first line of defense still in the skin. Okay? So, dryness in the skin, and then acidity, and the temperature below 37 degrees centigrade inhibit growth of microorganisms. So earlier, I already mentioned the acidity of the skin can not be actually invade those anaerobes, okay? And of course, it's dryness, because if you still remember the one that we discussed last time, they need a moist environment to be able to multiply and survive. But in the epidermal part, okay, if it's you have a dry skin, basically they will be able not to make it on our first line of defense. Mamamatay na sila in our in the first line of defense, which is our skin. Okay. Another is the oily sebum released by the sebaceous glands, also contain fatty acid. So these fatty acids, since they contain this oily sebum, this is actually very detrimental to pathogens. Okay? Very toxic to pathogens or the microorganism. Okay? So it helps in one way or another. If you have an oily skin, it usually destroys potential pathogens also. Okay, aside from the dryness of the skin. Okay, perspiration has two purposes. So, like what I've said before, when you perspire, meron bang hindi nagpe-perspire dito? Because if you will not perspire and you do a lot of activities, it is very abnormal of you not to perspire. Or I may say that it has something in you that needs to be checked. Okay? So perspiration has two purposes. Flushing of microorganisms from pores and the surface of the skin. So perspiration, when you perspire, okay, it's basically preventing you, okay, or preventing the invasion of pathogen, because it flush potential pathogens or microorganism or organism from invading your pores, and of course the surface of the skin. Of course, when you perspire, you need to actually wipe it off. Okay? Kasi pag hindi, when did you already observe this? Especially during summer, okay? Pag pinapatagal mo yung pawis mo, eventually you will be experiencing itchiness or rashes, okay? Because you already have those microorganisms or germs on your skin, okay? Kaya makati. So that's why you have to wipe it off, and after having rest for a while, after you having those perspiration or you perspires a lot, take a rest, and you need to have a bath or shower. Okay? So perspiration has two purposes. Okay? That is flushing of microorganisms from pores in the surface of the skin. Another is contains our perspiration, yung pawis, I should say, it contains a lysosome or lysozyme, which hydrolyzes peptidoglycan in bacterial cell wall. Okay? So when you say hydrolysis, it undergo hydrolysis. This is adding of water. Pagka may water, actually breaks down. Okay? It destroys the integrity of the cell wall, which has the peptidoglycan in the bacterial cell wall. So the lysozyme has an antibacterial property. So that's our lysozyme. So the lysozyme, um, in the why I actually just remember that why infection does not always occur in the is one of the reasons why infection does not always occur is because of these antibacterial factors like we have in our tears, in our saliva, in our perspiration, that they contains the lysozyme. Okay? So sometimes when you actually cry, it helps also because it clears, okay, whatever is the potential invaders or microorganism present in your eyes when you cry. So lysosome is in our tears that usually clears out whatever is in our tears or eyes, okay? If may it be a non-living or a living invaders, okay? In our saliva, we have also the lysozymes that usually, okay, kills or destroys pathogens in our saliva. So these are in our saliva, and then we have in our perspiration or our sweat, okay? So that's for the skin. Next would be the mucous membrane. May I know? Are you following class? Are you still with me? Handyan
Yes.
pa ba kayo?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
May I know
Yes,
what is
ma'am.
our time?
7:18, ma'am.
Okay. I'm sorry, class. I got disconnected. May we continue? We still have 10 minutes. I think we can still finish the second um, example for our first line of defense. May I just continue what we left a while ago? Sorry for the interruption. I actually have unstable internet. May I continue? Still have 10 minutes kasi sayang yung oras. Okay? Okay, are you still with me, class?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you see now my current slide where we left a while ago?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we are now on our second defense. For the first line of defense, we have the mucous membrane. So the mucous membrane is our physical or chemical or physical or mechanical barrier to pathogen as long as it is intact. So our mucous membrane is usually located in our internal organ that covers our internal organs. Okay, so the mucus produced by the membrane serves to entrap invaders. So since the mucous membrane is like parang it's like it has a mucus on it that can easily trap, okay, the invaders, it can also helps that defends our system from invaders. So that's our mucous membrane. So what are examples of this mucous membrane in our system? Okay, so mucous membrane, these are substances contained in the mucus. Okay, so we have the lactoferrin. This is a protein that binds with iron. So if we have the lactoferrin, the microorganism or the pathogen usually compete with the iron, okay, with our indigenous microflora or the ones that we needed in our system. Okay, so that's the lactoferrin, okay, that in one way or another the pathogen or the invaders will not be able to survive because they will compete with the iron content, which is also important in there as nutrients for them to survive. Okay, so that is lactoferrin. It is a protein that binds with iron. Okay, and then also what's in the mucus is also the lysozyme that degrades peptidoglycan of the bacterial cell wall. So it's also in the skin, okay, but also in the mucus. It is also present in nasal secretions, in saliva, and also in our tears. Okay? And then aside from those, we also have the lactoperoxidase that produces superoxide radicals which are toxic to bacteria. So this what do you call this? Disrupts the DNA synthesis, okay, of the pathogens or the microorganism. So we have the lactoperoxidase which is present in the mucous membrane. Okay? In the mucous membrane where the mucous membrane covers our inner lining of our organs, okay, it has the cilia in it. So cilia is present on the epithelial cells. So the cilia is the one that's what do you call this? Prevents the microorganisms or the invaders to gain entrance. So parang kumbaga they wipe it off, okay? The microorganisms or invaders because of its structures. Okay, so it has the hair-like structures that usually defend our system from invaders. So that's the cilia. Another is swallowing of the saliva. So when we swallow, every now and then our saliva, in our saliva we have the lysosomes, okay, that usually has the antibacterial factors that destroys microorganism, okay, or invaders, okay, usually goes through our gastric or the gastrointestinal and be able to destroy there because of its acidity. Okay. Next, in the gastrointestinal system, we actually have these digestive enzymes. Okay. So these digestive enzymes, okay, also helps in destroying the invaders or the pathogens, plus the acidity of the stomach, okay, and of course the alkalinity of the intestine. So that's why the small intestine is usually free of a microorganism because of this process, because of these components of the gastrointestinal tract, okay? The digestive enzyme plus the acidity of the stomach and the alkalinity of the intestine, okay? So the stomach acid, okay, plus the bile salts, okay, and the rapid flow of the GI, the gastrointestinal contents, okay, that's the reason why the small intestine is relatively free of bacteria. Okay? So that's for the gastrointestinal system, which is also considered our first line of defense. Okay? Another is that our urinary tract is usually sterile. Okay? So urination continually flush organism. So that's why if you don't usually dispose, or if you don't frequently dispose of your urine, okay, you can experience an infection. That would be urinary tract infection or stones or whatever. If you are you love to eat sugary products or salty products, okay, it can infect your urinary tract, or you can have a urinary tract infection. Okay, so urination is healthy. Okay, it usually flush off or disposed of microorganisms. Okay, when you secretes those unabsorbable nutrients, at the same time you dispose of or excretes of microorganism. Okay, so the conditions that may lead to UTI or urinary tract infection will be the following: infrequent urination. Kung tinatamad ka ng umihi, okay, you can have UTI. Another is failure to urinate after intercourse. Of course, you don't know this at your age, because I'm assuming that at your age you are not engaging this sexual acts, okay? But failure to urinate after intercourse usually cause urinary tract infection, okay? Because I don't want to elaborate more about this, because I know you are educated on what is I'm telling of the intercourse, but of course you need to basically be educated of this, even if you have no experience of this. Okay, and then obstruction of urine flow. Okay, obstruction of urine flow is also one that may lead to UTI. Yung hindi mo tinatapos, or because of your it may also, one way or another, may, if you have diseases like chronic kidney failure, it can obstruct your urine flow. Kumbaga kokonti lang yung naiihi mo, because if you have those diseases already, those chronic diseases of the kidney, you are not actually required to take a lot of fluids, because your kidneys may not be able to function well already. So it can obstruct the urine flow. So these are the conditions that may lead to UTI. Okay? And then we have the genitourinary system. This is when you have the low pH of vagina inhibits colonization. So that's why oral contraceptives also increase vaginal pH. Okay? So one of the disadvantage of taking oral contraceptives is that they usually increase the pH of the vagina, which is basic. And what we need is a low pH of vagina, which is acidic for us to inhibit colonization or invasion of pathogens or microorganism. Kailangan natin always our vagina for the females, for the reproductive tract should be acidic to inhibit the growth of microorganism. Okay? But if you are taking oral contraceptives, that would be one of the disadvantage because contraceptives may increase vaginal pH, okay, or basicity of our vagina. Okay. Blinking and lacrimation flash the eye surface. This is one that I mentioned a while ago, that sometimes crying is also an advantage, okay, because it clears what's in your eyes, whatever it's in your eyes, present in your eyes, okay. So it flash the eye surface with tears and rid it of its irritant, okay. So if you cannot cry, diba, they usually advise us to flash off plenty of water, whatever it is that's in your eyes, to clear your eyes from something or to get rid of that something that's present in your eye. So blinking and lacrimation flash the eye surface, okay, with tears and get rid of irritants, okay. Microbial antagonism is also our first line of defense, where the competition of colonization, this is the one that I mentioned last time, that when microorganisms or invaders compete with the nutrients and space or nutrient supplies and invades, they may not be able to survive. Okay? And competition of nutrients, okay, production of substances, the ones that our normal microflora, okay, that produces, okay, that kill other microorganisms. That's our bacteriocins or our proteinaceous substances that may destroy or kill invaders or microorganisms. Okay. This is effective. The effectiveness decreases after prolonged administration of broad-spectrum antibiotics. So, if you are taking broad-spectrum antibiotics, when you remember what is a broad-spectrum antibiotics, okay, when we discussed the antibiotics last time, these are the antibiotics that can kill a broad or a plenty of microorganisms, numerous microorganisms. But the moment, okay, it has a it can resist to those medication or antibiotic, you can have the superbugs, okay, resistant antibiotics infection, okay. That is for microbial antagonism, okay. I think it's already 1:32. Am I right? So I think we need to end from this. So we are done with our first line of defense. For the next meeting on Thursday, I will be discussing the second line of defense and the third line of defense. So we only are in the, I think, if I'm not mistaken, we are half from this PowerPoint. So we still have a lot to discuss next meeting for the second line of defenses and the third line of defenses. Okay. So any question, class, before we leave the meeting? It's already 7:34 in my 7:35 in my clock, in my time. Any question, class, regarding the discussion before we leave the meeting? So I assume you learned something, you understood something, or you understand all what has been discussed from the terms, from the infection, why infection does not always occur, from the stages of the infection, classification of the infection, and of course, from the first defense of our system, that is our skin and the mucous membrane and the others. Okay? So I hope you learned something from our discussion today since you don't have any question. Okay? So thank you class for attending our lecture session. Please update me, Miss Del Castillo, about our, may I just download the attendance? Please update me of your preferred scheduled time or of your decision. Also of your decision if you will have a long quiz that covers the preventing spread of infectious diseases and human defenses, that would be next week. But if you will separate it from the human defenses, we will have it this week. So you have to talk to your classmates about it, the preferred time and date, so that I can also talk to my 1F. Okay? So thank you class for this meaningful and meaningful discussion of our lecture. I hope you learned something from this. Okay? So may we have the closing prayer? May we have the closing prayer? Okay, Mr. Karag, anak?
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, thank you for what we learned for this day, and please keep us safe, especially our teacher. That's all. In the name of the Father, Son, and Spirit. Amen.
Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. So thank you, anak. Thank you guys for attending, for joining. So it's different when you attend class, right?